to come visit us? We have been expecting you.
Great.
Just grab some stuff from Kempenfeld Players.
Oh, this is cool. Okay, so...
Yeah. I just said, where do we start?
Who are you picking up, Jane?
She's on the phone.
All right. So I'd like to welcome you all to our evening. My name is Jan and I work at the Penetanguishene Museum. And tonight during our tour we're going to be encountering a number of spirits as we wander through the downtown core. And they're going to be sharing with us their memories and their experiences when they were on this earth plane. So as we go, I'll just ask that we kind of try and stick together so that when we reach each interpreter, each spirit, that nobody will miss out on what's being said. You're joining us now? Next one? Okay. All right, so we're going to cross the road to the back block. And we're going to meet up with somebody over there. So we're just going to wait until the light turns red at the top of the hill. So we all get across. We don't want to be like a squirrel and end up halfway.
Good evening, gentlemen. How are you all doing tonight?
Well,
For those who have seen me around town, and you might know me, but for those who haven't, please allow me to introduce myself. I am Mary Beck Robinson, firstborn of Charles and Amelia Beck, and I'm married to George Robinson, the manager of the elite Penetanguishene Hotel. It was built in 1889 for $29,000. My marrying George did not at all please my father. For those that are unaware, Charles Beck owned C. Beck Manufacturing Company down here on the bottom of the hill. He also owned the sawmill and box company. Are any of you Beck Mill employees? I'm asking because you can spend your money here at my father's general store. He owns these three buildings and bought them in 1885 and had them built in 1885. Some of the occupants included a banker, a bowling alley, the Chinese laundry, a tailor, who was also a Sunday school Presbyterian minister, and a tobacco store. He had quite the system going, paying his employees half regular currency and half with small metal tokens known as Beck dollars. It was making him a very rich man, but I will see very little of that, as my marrying George has essentially written me out of my father's will. I've heard I'm only to receive $1. And all the time that I spent raising my 8 siblings after our mother passed away. But I have been told that my siblings will be sharing their inheritance with me. So I must be on my way now, but if you ever have time to visit the general store at the bottom of the hill, which I believe you know as the Centennial Museum, please feel free to drop by. People claim that there is some spiritual activity down there. In the nighttime, they've seen a woman in a white dress through the windows. Just so happens I happen to own one white dress. So when you're down there visiting, and you feel someone watching you, turn around quickly. It might be me. I have to go now. Good night.
And I'll ask you to direct your attention across the road and see if you can take yourself back to the year 1832. Does anybody happen to know what was on the town hall site in 1832? Yeah, it was a cemetery. It was a site of St. Anne's First Church, which was nothing but a log cabin and the cemetery attached to it. The church was initiated by Drummond Islander Dedan Ravol and also fur trader George Gordon. We may be visiting George Gordon further along in our tour. We'll see if we have time to stop and see him. In the log cabin church was replaced by a frame church that actually had some stained glass windows in it. And jumping ahead a little bit to 1881 was the time that, I'm just going to check all my dates to make sure I have it right. At that time they purchased land up on Owen Street for a new and roomier cemetery. This one here was quite small. So it's at the current site that it is now. In 1891, Father Laboureau sold off the property and advised all of the families who had loved ones in the cemetery that they needed to come and move their loved ones to the new cemetery. The church was not going to pay for this. It had to be paid by the families. So evidently an awful lot of bodies were left behind. People at that time moved around a lot, so families might not have even been in the area anymore. Perhaps you didn't have the money to have someone come and remove your loved one and move them. So in 1949, when they were bulldozing the site for a grocery store that was being put up, they did come across a number of skeletons. So they were reinterred at the new site at that point. The church that currently stands was completed in 1902. So going back to 1832, that was quite early in our history. Okay, so we'll just continue on our way here. It's the harvest moon tonight.
Hi there. You must be here to see my husband, John Thomas Payette. JT to all of us. I'm Pearl Payette. Actually, you may know me as Pearl Vivian Hart. My family, the Harts, used to live in Elmville, Ontario. So please welcome to my home. Unfortunately, JT can't be with us right now. He's just down at the foundry and he works very late hours. Business and more business, that's his motto. Have you been past the foundry? It's just down on Nelson Street, which I had the most curious visitor earlier today saying that Nelson Street is now Beck Boulevard. But I suppose it makes sense. Charles Beck does own the lumber company just down the road. But the foundry's been there since 1880. Obviously, my JT hasn't been in charge of that for that entire period. His uncle, Peter Payette, used to be in charge, but once Peter died of a stroke in 1913, then my JT took over. Actually, his friend George Copeland Jr. was with him, but it's late hours now, and often I'm home and dinner gets cold and I eat alone. But if it isn't the foundry, it's the mill. I'm not sure if you've heard, but just this past week, the mill and calendar, well, it burnt down, and we've been with the insurance agents, and we're not sure if they'll be able to cover it. We have mills all over northern Ontario, but I think with the number of fires and the demand recently, they're just not sure if they will be able to cover the cost. It's a shame though. JT bought this beautiful piece of land and he plans to build a resort on it, but without the mills, I'm not sure if this will be possible. Now, we do still have the racetrack. Have you been to Robert Street, to the raceway? Yeah. Well, we have beautiful horses, and oh, they're prize winning, but that's on the east side. So we do still have that, but I'm not sure if it will quite cover the cost. Sometimes it seems as though we've just been dealt a bad hand between the mills and the death of our son. Sometimes I'm not sure how we'll go on. Our son died at the age of 5, but JT took it very hard. That would be somebody to carry on the legacy of the family name, but unfortunately he died. When I was pregnant again, I hoped that maybe this would bring new life to the family, but our daughter was really met with bitter disappointment. Does he not realize that we cannot choose the gifts that God gives? We cannot choose the path, and we don't know what life holds.
So she also said during renovations they have found a bunker under the floor. It's about 10 feet by 6. They don't know the purpose of it. It was well hidden. There wasn't a staircase going to it. It was when they were ripping up a floor that they discovered it. So
How strange.
it's still a mystery. We don't know what it was about. So we're going to carry on now.
I like mysteries though.
See ya, Pearl.
too?
The Thompson.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, you were.
Yeah, I can't do better than that. They couldn't get it open all summer. And finally, in the summer, we hired a guy, and he said it's like it's on greaseball bearings.
Oh, really?
The exact same thing happened.
Oh.
I let you there. And it was creepy.
I guess so. Burke was telling us a few stories. You can share it with us.
It was lovely. My next life, I'm not going to
Oh.
Robin, stop! Oh, who goes there? We're looking for deserters. Come forward.
Not me.
They're in the back.
Hands up, everyone.
Deserters, come forward. Round them up, get them over here. Right across here. Move it, let's go!
Come around here.
Alrighty then.
Did you say you're serving dessert?
Take the king's shilling, you'll get more than dessert.
Do people seen any suspicious people tonight?
Deserters?
Not me.
Looking for recruits for the local militia. Anybody
Step
between
right
the ages of 16 and 60? How old are you, sir?
Oh, 67.
67? In my mind, you are 59, sir. 59, that's all it is. You line up right here. You line up too. Let's go.
Give him a shot of rum.
Private, push them in here. Let's go. That's the scene.
You over here, come on.
You in the back there looking menace. Get over here. Come on, forward.
Move it in.
So we're at war and times are tough. Looking for deserters. Why are you cowering in the back?
I don't know. What was the description of that fella that deserted from the militia?
Top hat,
Top hat and...
officer.
yeah, officer.
Spitting out something about America, you know, the
Yeah.
parade.
Madison, I think,
Madison,
something like
love
that.
Madison.
Yeah, I don't know.
Any Americans here? You American? Please stand over there. Americans, no? You loyal to the Queen or the King?
Queen. King.
Queen Charlotte.
Queen Charlotte.
It's King George III.
Yes, I
Yes.
get that.
Queen Charlotte. You're lucky you're not in England. Sir, this man's cowering. I know he's cowering. Step forward, sir. Step forward. Black top hat.
That'd be a black top hat.
Top hat.
Looks a lot like his waistcoat.
Beside him.
What's that?
Beside him.
He's an ugly looking fella. It looks just like the poster.
It took 2 hours to draw that poster.
I know. And a
It's the
likeness
only one
it
I
is.
got, so don't lose
And
it.
a likeness it is.
The rest of you, you loyal to the King?
I
It's yes, sir! Are you loyal to the King?
Yes,
None of this, yeah!
We're in the army now.
In order to make sure you are loyal to the King, you will take the King's oath, then you'll be on your way. Then they object. Like those?
Toast at least, but not quite O's.
Repeat after me.
After me.
I'm an idiot. Repeat after me. I said I!
Aye.
Being a true and loyal subject. Watch that man.
What's that, man?
You should be saying the oath too.
Well, how come I'm not hearing it from his lips? God save President Madison!
Get that man! Get him, gentlemen, get him! Privates, go!
Oh, I think we better.
You move on!
Go with
We
the-
found our man!
Three.
I most certainly did. I hope they gave him a good talking to.
I think they did more than that.
Well, good evening, everyone. Oh, I love having guests. Sometimes, well, I just come out here just to look at the beautiful trees. You know, before I came here, I had never seen such magnificent trees. Everywhere you look, as far as the eye can see, beautiful white pine, 200 feet tall, 6 feet wide. When I came here, my father said, "Son, those trees are gold. This is your gold rush. Take the opportunity." He was absolutely correct. Excuse me, I did not introduce myself. I am Charles McGibbon, and behind me is my lumber office, behind the lemonade stand. And if you look behind you, I don't know what that large blocky building is, but that is my mill. I'm proud to say we employ 60 men. I misspoke, excuse me, 59. Last night, one of my men came down with a spasm of the chest and passed away, leaving behind a widow and 7 young children. I will do whatever I can to make sure that she has a head start in her new life. Let it be known that Charles McGibbon takes care of his men. They risk their lives every day for my benefit. It is the least I can do to show my compassion and indeed my appreciation. But, speaking of family, I too have a large, beautiful family. I married my Elmina in 1878, and we have 6 beautiful children, 5 boys and 1 girl, Helen. Now, I love all of my children equally, but it is Helen who factors into the story tonight. It was Helen who married the McGibbon family into another high-status family in the neighborhood, that being the family of Charles Beck, whom you may have heard of, by marrying his son, Walter. Now, Charles Beck is someone for whom I have great respect. A lot of people say he is very contentious, and he likes things his specific way, but he is a very good businessman, and he does a lot for the people in this town. However, his son Walter, I'm afraid, might be a bit of a scoundrel. Time will tell. But in any case, I am proud to say I'm very pleased with what I have accomplished in my life. By age 29, I was already warden of the county of Simcoe, and shortly after, for 2 years, the mayor of Penetanguishene takes... Yes! Yes, Penetanguishene. Go Kings.
Now there's a look into the future.
That's right. Speaking of the future, I'm afraid I must leave you in a moment. Some other gentlemen and I are getting together. We are building a new school for the young people in this community. It is, I believe, called a high school. And if you'll excuse me, I am late for our meeting, and I will bid you good evening.
Good evening, Charles. Thank you. So I'll just give you a little bit more information before we head off. So Charles was to remain a very respected member of the community. He was to be widowed in later years, and himself, he passed away while on journey to visit his son, Finley, in Vancouver. Now I'll just give you a little tidbit about, we'll just walk this way a little bit, and we'll talk about the home next door. Heard that. Oh.
Go ahead.
Come on with me. It is rumored that there was a tunnel that connected McGibbon's home to this home next door, number 30. And it just so happens that number 30, they built it specifically for their bookkeeper, who was a single woman. So we leave it at that. We don't know. Hey, let's go down here.
So it pays to be a bookkeeper.
We're going to move on to the home of his other son, Archie McGibbon, and at that point we are going to have a little bit of refreshment time. I'll shoot the traffic. And listen to a bit of entertainment by our own Noni Thompson. To listen to the lovely music, and then we'll move on. Get yourself a drink and a cookie if you like.
He's tied to me, Nancy. When I finally need to steal away, close my eyes and dream of Georgian Bay. Soon I see
sweetest picture.
Oh yeah, I always heard that this house.
I remember Nancy Jennifer and them putting it.
Okay. All right. All right, we're going to sneak up on this lovely couple.
Will you bring knives?
No.
Give some gold. Can you bring that?
Commonly referred to as AA. This is my wife, Sarah. And we were just reminiscing about our house and times gone by. Would you be interested in hearing about it a little bit?
Yes.
Oh, great. I'm glad to hear that, because this will be a short meeting otherwise. It just seemed like such a short time ago in 1830. I was 17 years old, and I was working down here for Andrew Mitchell, and I lived in a little log house. Andrew Mitchell had a booming fur trading business, and I worked as a clerk for him. And I worked hard. I worked hard enough that by age 19, 2 years later, I was given a contract to build a road connecting the military establishment at the end of the bay with the town. And I also was commissioned to build 40 pensioner homes along that route, commonly known today as Church Street. But that was at 19 years old, that was my first major project. A year later, in about 1833, at 20 years of age, Andrew Mitchell and I got together and we built the first steamship that sailed on Georgian Bay, and it was called the Penetanguishene. And I hear that sometime in the future there are going to be these amazing implements that you'll be able to do some research on that ship, but we don't have them today because they don't exist. Now, that takes me up to 1840. In 1840, 10 years after I started working for Andrew Mitchell, I had amassed enough money that I was able to buy Andrew Mitchell out of his fur trading business, because I had started my own fur trading. I was able to build the green block, which if you carry on a little later, you'll see it on the other side of the street. And first brick store in the town of in the village of Penetanguishene. Now, I traded with First Nations people from as far away as Thunder Bay today, or the other end of Lake Superior at the time. And some of my favorite peoples that I dealt with came down from Lake Nipissing, about a 100-mile paddle, and they were from the Docus. Now, where am I going now?
1843.
Oh yes, in 1843 I tried to branch out into a little bit of politics, and I became the clerk for Tiny Township, and Penetanguishene was part of Tiny Township at the time, because it was not yet incorporated into a town, so it was a village. And in 1847 I was made Justice of the Peace. So in 1847 the business is booming, and these furs are being sold to far away as Australia and France. People would come and bid on these furs. Now,
In 1857.
in 1857, I married the lovely Sarah Burke from the infamous Burke family that has sailed all over the Great Lakes.
Sea captain.
And she's a descendant of Captain James Keating from the fort of the 1812 era. And in 1859, I had amassed enough money that I was able to build this beautiful home. And you'll notice it's in the Georgian style, with a central doorway and windows equally spaced out to the side. The veranda was added later, and I don't know what anybody you think of it, but I like it. Now, that takes us up to 1859, and at 1881 was my proudest moment, because this town was incorporated, and I was elected to be the town's first mayor. And so what did I do? I got my carriage out. I hooked my wife up to the, I hooked the horses up to the carriage, and my wife rode with me as we traveled around the town, and I thanked all the people that elected me to this great office in the best honor that I had. Now that takes us through my little history. Did I miss anything there?
Just the two churches.
Oh, two
St.
churches.
James on the Line, where we were married.
And I was instrumental in those two, in the erection of both buildings, actually, but enough about all of that. And that's my little rendition.
Well, perhaps now we could listen to stories from the real Burke Thompson.
Okay, Alfred Andrew Thompson.
Allow me to hold your hat.
Well, thank you.
Now, my real name is Alfred Burke Thompson III. And when I was, because Alfred Andrew's youngest child was Alfred Burke I. When I was a teenager, I had 5 sisters. Now, in the summertime, the sisters went to the cottage. I see some of them here tonight. And if you get to know me, you'll know why I stayed in here by myself. That's just a joke. Anyway, I would stay here by myself, and in the middle of one night, I heard some strange noises in the hallway. And I described it as moccasins. And when I told my friend, he told his grandmother, who was well into her 80s, and this is 50 years ago, and she said that First Nations people slept in this house from time to time. And I had no knowledge of that. So, of course, later on I was to find out that they did actually sleep in the house. 2 years ago we had a family reunion, and the great-great-grandson of the Dokas from Lake Nipissing attended our family reunion, put on a show, and I told him that story, and he came in the house and he blessed it, and did his spiritual enactments around the house so that those spirits could rest in peace. So anyway, that's just a little bit of a little sideline story. I hope you enjoyed our little talk.
And I do think thank you.
I wondered if you could tell me, have I reached the home of George Gordon?
Yeah.
Let me introduce myself firstly. I am William Simpson. George and I have been friends for some time through the wars of 1812 and the battle for Fort Mackinac, but have yet to see him since Fort William. But I have heard that George has built the first homestead in this vast and plentiful wilderness. That George is quite a fellow. You see, I am a trapper like him, and later will become a shrewd and wealthy merchant. But I would bet my finest coon skin and $50 that George's house may be standing here 200 years from now. What a shame George and Agnes lost their oldest boy to what is believed to be attacked by wolves. I heard his skull showed up on the skirts of town some days later. I do like the looks of this land, possibly that property down the way. My skills as a trapper and my knowledge of the French and Ojibwe may lead way to a successful business. But for now, I am sore and need comfort in the Word of God. And I have heard that George's cabin is being used as the church, but you may know more of that than I.
Well, thank you for sharing your evening with us. Thank you. Hello, sir.
Hello, ma'am. Welcome to the Green Block. My name is William McMaster Thompson. I am the son of the original owner. I'm also known as WM, or if you're Charles Beck, Billy. The other day he came up and he said, "Billy, you have to come and see my new boat." It's called Green Block because the trim originally around the building was painted green. It was known as the greatest tourist supply house on Georgian Bay. where the local tourists would supply before they headed up to their camps on the shore. This building was started by my father, Alfred Andrew, in the 1840s, and then was expanded after that. He gradually enlarged into this fine store with its beautiful decor, inside and out. Please notice the Italianate false front and the tin ceilings that still remain inside. We no longer trade furs, even though, well, we sell them, I suppose. But as late as the 1880s, my father would buy Anishinaabe and Métis furs from as far away as Thunder Bay and auction off the entire lot to the highest bidder. Buyers would come from as far away as Australia, New York, Berlin, Montreal, and they would auction them off in one lot, up to $20,000 worth in 1 year, which is a lot of money back then. Now we provide all manner of dry goods, provisions, clothing to the community and the tourists who come here from all around. We pride ourselves on having something for everyone. We buy produce from local farmers, and for years it was the only market and center where they could get cash in return for their goods to pay their taxes. We even had our own currency. Maybe if you ask the current owner, Mr. Kadier, he'll show you one of our coins. I also outfitted special rail cars with heaters to transport potatoes in the winter to Toronto. And I lend money for mortgages to the folk in the area. My wife Julian and I and our 4 children live on Church Street in our home Pinehurst. The doctor recommended that we build there because she has bad asthma and thought that that being up high on the hill, the air would be much better than down here with all the mills and factories belching smoke. We have a wonderful view of the bay up there. Tragically, my eldest son, Alfred Hamilton, who was to take over the business, died from his wounds in the Royal Flying Corps in France just before the armistice was declared. Now my daughter and her husband have to help. My brother, Alfred Burke, keeps his office upstairs. He's a lawyer, member of provincial parliament, and now member of parliament. My favorite pastime is curling, and we're lucky to have a wonderful curling rink just down the street. We've won many championships. I'll tell you a little story, a strange story about what happened to my father after he died. It was April, and we just concluded trading with his native partners. They had left in their gaily decorated war canoes with their yearly supplies, and received a premonition from the spirit world that something had happened to Alfred Andrew. Turned around, came back, and found him had passed away. So they visited him in the house and placed in his casket a pipe, pouch of tobacco, and sweetgrass to help him on to his voyage to the next world. How interesting that the Green Block continues to exist after more than 160 years as a major retail establishment. It's called the Trading Post, and we see First Nation themed merchandise prominently displayed. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Hey, we'll just... Good evening, sir.
Oh, good evening. Welcome, welcome. I'll wait for your candidates. How do you do that?
Oh, the printer home.
Well. Wow. You look good.
This is it. We're all here, sir.
Hello and welcome to Corbeau Brothers Furniture and Undertakers. Now don't look so shocked. It's quite common, you see, for furniture makers to provide the full service, so to speak. I operate this store alongside my brother Napoleon, who's inside at the moment. We used to occupy space up the street, and I believe in your time it's called Hat Studio. But we needed to expand in order that we might provide you with all the wonderful products you see before you. So in 1885 we constructed this place, and we have much more space. And if you are in the market for a baby carriage, ours are handcrafted and will provide your child not only with security, but with comfort as you're out taking a stroll. Or, if you're in the market for a casket, ours are sturdy and will provide all the needs for your dearly departed. Or perhaps you would like to purchase one for yourself, and we can just hold on to it until the need arises. Oh. This one is gently used, half price. Very good deals. Oh, but where are my manners? My name is Francis Hector Corbeau. I married my wife Fanny up at St. Anne's Church back in 1874, and we have 9 wonderful children together, 2 of which will go on to play in the National Hockey League. It's a good thing we live so close to such wonderful bay that freezes so well in the winter. I tell you, my kids come home at the end of the day and you'd swear their feet were blocks of ice. And my youngest son, Burke, will go on to play 6 seasons, I'm told, with the Montreal Canadiens, and 1 with the Toronto Maple Leafs. The first player in history to play for both sides of that heated rivalry. He was also the first player to record 100 penalty minutes. Bertram Pig Iron Corbeau, they called him, I'm told. Actually, he was inducted into the Penetanguishene Sports Hall of Fame back in 1987, which is well beyond my time, but feel free to see for yourselves. Unfortunately, I'll never be able to travel to go watch him play, but that doesn't prevent a father's pride. Now, after Bert retires from the National Hockey League, he goes on to work at the Penetanguishene Foundry and Machine Works, where he'll eventually become plant manager. I'm sorry, this part's hard for me. You see, in 1942, the foundry had just completed an order for the Canadian war effort, ahead of schedule, mind you. And so they were all in high spirits and looking to celebrate. And while my son offered to take them out on his yacht for the day, the Wawanet. Everybody being in high spirits, most of them readily accepted. And 42 people set out from Penetanguishene Harbor, 4 p.m. They made it as far as Honey Harbor before deciding to turn back. It said it was a lovely, calm night, not unlike tonight. But the Wawanet, she struck aground a sandbar off the coast of Beausoleil. They say that...
Oh dear, maybe we should
all open in one side of the yacht, the Wawanet, and she sunk quickly. Those who fell off the one side soon found themselves at the nearby Beausoleil shores, but those who fell off the other side saw the lights of Midland Harbor and swam that direction and drowned. Of the 42 people aboard the Wawanet that night, 25 drowned, including my son. I'm just grateful that I'd passed on 5 years previous myself and did not have to endure the event. But for now, here tonight, I am here, my wife is with me, and my children inside, and all is well. If you'll excuse me, I must see to the needs of the customer, and I bid you all a good night.
On behalf of the Penetanguishene Museum, I'd like to thank all of you for coming out tonight. We hope you enjoyed your tour. We'd love to see you down at the museum anytime, and we bid you good evening. Thank you.
Very good.
And certainly thank you to all of our wonderful volunteers.